Okay, here's the second video for geometry and algebra combined, just as we do pre-algebra review. Now, once we get past this few days, I'll be separating to where geometry will have their own, algebra will have their own. But I wanted to go ahead and keep these together because we're going to review the same things. But basically, we're still in pre-algebra review. We're going to look at combining like terms. So yesterday, which was actually still today for me, I don't wear the same sweatshirt every day, but yesterday you would have looked at PEMDAS, and so that will never leave. We'll keep following PEMDAS on all our problems. Then we're going to look at combining like terms. Now, this is used a lot in both of these classes. You're going to have variables in a lot of our problems, and especially in algebra, as we go on and make the problems bigger, you're always going to have to rely on combining the like terms. Okay, so this will be something we use daily in both of these classes. Okay, so on that, what is a like term? And this, I've already learned, this is going to be the hardest thing for my online classes, not switching boards, even though I'm not very coordinated, so that's going to be hard too. But knowing when I use terms, when I use vocabulary, if you've not had me before, or if it's been a while since you've been in a math class, you're not going to know sometimes what I'm saying as far as if I use a vocab word that we've covered in prior classes. And I'm just big about, I love people asking questions in my class, and that's going to be the hardest thing. So please, if there's anything that just stuck out to where you're like, I have no idea what he's saying, please email me so that I know how to help you, and that's going to be the only way I can know where you're at. So don't feel like you're bothering me at all. I want to hear from you just to see how you're doing, even beyond just turning in your assignments. Still gives that little connection because I am self-quarantined still, so any kind of connection with anybody is great. I'm like, oh, I'm not stuck in my house. But basically, this way you can look. I talked about combining like terms, so first what we're going to look at is what is a like term. Okay, a like term is they have to have the same variable. Variable is a letter, so we've introduced, in pre-algebra we introduce letters into our math problems like 7x, 3y, 4a. So it's got to have the same letter, and it has to have the same exponent. So we're going to look at what that means and how that is in a problem, but that's the two things that make it a like term. It's got to have the same variable and have the same exponent. So first let's look at the same variable. This goes to the introduction of variables. When I do this in pre-algebra, if I have an a plus a b, can I just make that an ab? Okay, here's why I cannot do that. Because this means a times b. Anytime you write something by each other, we learned that when we did that with numbers. If I did 7 times 4 like that, wrote them side by side, I did not mean 74, I meant 7 times 4. So when I write a by b, that means a times b. That is not a plus b. So I can't just combine them. And I talk about, I do this silly thing with apples and bananas. Okay, I can't just make an apple or a bapple or something. I can't make a new fruit when I add a plus b. Now, if I have 2 apples and I add 3 more apples, okay, that I can do because I can take 2 apples to. Imagine you're in a grocery store and you walk up, you've got 2 apples in this hand, you have 3 apples in this hand. For one, they're probably small apples to hold them in your hand that way. But if I go to pay for that, I'm not going to make them ring up 2 apples and then say, okay, now I'm going to pay for these 3 apples. I'm going to combine them and pay for 5 apples. Okay, you can add the coefficients of these and have 5 apples. I can combine these. They're the same letter. What I can't do is go to the grocery store and say, okay, I want to pay for 2 apples which have a totally different cost than 3 bananas. Okay, when they ring them up, they're going to have different costs. So I can't just walk in and say, okay, just charge me 5 of whatever an apple and banana cost together. Cannot do that. Okay, so I can't combine these two things. This would be wrong. Because for one, they don't have the same variable. They're not the same letter. Okay, now one of the hard things about that is, and this comes up a lot when you go to add, just remember if there's no number in front of the letter, that means there's a 1 there. So if I'm adding, let's say I'm adding an apple, 3 bananas, 4 apples, and another banana. Okay? So here's where I'm talking about that you've got several letters. Some of them don't have a number in front of them. If they don't have a number in front of them, that means they're one. Okay? One apple, one banana. If you asked a student how many A's are right here, they would say 1A. Well, there's 1A, so that means 1A. We don't write 1, so that's why there's no 1 there. Okay? So if I'm looking to combine when I go to the grocery store and say, okay, I want to put these together and just pay all at once, if I have 1 apple and 4 apples, they're going to say I have 5 apples. They'll scan the apple and charge me 5 of them. Okay? Bananas, I've got 3 bananas and 1 more banana, so I have 4 bananas. Now the reason why I put plus there is because these are all addition, so they're all positive. So I had apple and apple, 4 apples, so 5, and 3 bananas and banana, so I had 4. But that could change. I could have, let's say 7 apples, and let's say I take away 12 apples, and then I'm adding 3 bananas, but I take away, let's take away 2 bananas, 4 bananas, and another banana. The problems get this long, so that's why I put that up there. We're going to have to go through and combine the apples, and we're going to have to go through and combine the bananas. And negatives play into that, so some of these are going to come out negative. If I've got 7 apples minus 12 apples, remember that means I have negative 5 apples. And I would highly suggest, if negative numbers give you problems, to go online and look at some research. Khan Academy is a good one. On YouTube, there's Math Annex, and that's called integers. When you're working with negative numbers, we're not going to do that review because it would take too long for this is basically one of the main things you cover in pre-algebra. So, we spend a lot of time in that class on that. That's why we got to move on once we get to algebra and geometry. But if you still struggle with negative numbers, go to Math Annex or Khan Academy and look up integers, positive and negative integers. Okay, so 7a minus 12a is negative 5a. Okay, and then I go through 3b minus 2b is 1b, and then minus another 4b is negative 3b, and minus another b is negative 4b. So all I did was I did 3 minus 2, which is 1, 1 minus 4, which is negative 3, and negative 3 minus another one is negative 4b. So not always are they going to come out positive. Okay, so that's why your negative also plays into this when you're combining like terms. But as far as combining like terms, I only combine the A's and then I combine the B's. This is where the answer stops. I want to highlight this because this is about the time I start seeing students trying to combine these down. Now, yesterday when we did PIMDAS, I said you're going to get down to one value because they were all numbers, and so you could combine them all. But in this, when you get down to here, you cannot combine the A and the B, so you have to leave it like that. I know it doesn't look solved, but it is solved. It's in its simplest form, and you would see a direction on a test would not say solve on this because you don't end up with like A equals 4 or B equals 10. There's no equal sign, so there's not going to be a solving. It's going to be simplified because what you're doing is it's like simplifying fractions. When you reduce fractions and you have, you have 3 over 9 and you simplified that down to 1/3. It's the same value. You didn't change anything. You just simplified it. Well, this is the same thing. We've not changed anything from this long problem right here. Sorry, this one. We didn't change anything. We just simplified and combined what we could, and we've simplified it down to here. We've not solved anything. We need to know. We have to have more information given to us to solve. Either we need to know what A is and B is, or what this is equal to, and then we can start solving, okay? But as far as simplifying, that's what we're doing when we're combining like terms. Let's look at what happens then when you got exponents. So the first thing they have to have in common is the letter. The variable has to be the same. I cannot combine A and B, but I can combine A's together, B's together. Same with X's and Y's. Well, what happens when I have 7x plus 2x squared? Okay, so like terms have to be the same letter, which these are. They're both x's, but they also have to have the same exponent. So I cannot combine these two things. they do not have the same exponent. This has an exponent of 1, which we don't write a power of 1. And this has an exponent of 2. Same thing if I had 8y cubed plus 7y squared. I cannot combine those two things because they have different exponents. Okay, so they got to have the same letter and they got to have the same exponent. Well, what happens when they do have the same exponent? So let's say I have 8x squared plus 2x squared minus 3x minus 4x. So I'm going to look through here. All these have the same letter, but only a few of them have the same exponent as well. So that means I can combine these two things, okay? And this is, for those that did exponents in pre-algebra, this is going to be almost, we've made it so difficult that now it's going to be, we've got to scale it back a little bit. Because we learned about how we add the exponents and all this. On this case, we are taking x squared like it's something we're holding. We're holding 8 of these x squareds. And we got to think of them as things, like it's its own thing. X, we don't know what it is because we don't know what x is, but it's x squared. So if I'm holding 8 of those things and I add 2 more of those things, then I have 10 of those things. I don't do anything with the exponents because I'm not multiplying these two things. I'm just holding them. So I have 8 of them and I have 2 of them. So when I combine them, I have 10 of those x squares, okay? So that's how I combine those two. I can combine those two because they have the same letter and the same exponent. Same thing with this. I have negative 3x and negative 4x. Combine those and I have negative 7x. And that's where I have to stop because I cannot combine the x squared and the x. I have to leave it there, okay? So this is what happens when the exponents get involved as well. You have to make sure you keep them. Numbers, when you put in just numbers into a problem like this, they are their own term. So let's look at what that looks like. So let's say I have 3y minus 7x plus 2x minus 2y plus 7 minus 3. So here's all my letters, and then these don't even have letters. Well, that means that I cannot combine these with any of these because they have letters and they don't. But I can combine the two numbers. They are like terms. So because they have the same letter, they don't even have a letter, and they're the same exponent because once you have an exponent, you can do them. So here is 3y minus 2y, which is just 1y. Okay, if you write 1y, you're not going to be wrong. It's just we don't do that in math, so I'm going to write it just as y. Negative 7x plus 2x is negative 5x. Okay, I took negative 7 and I added 2, so that took me to negative 5. And then 7 minus 3 is a positive 4. Now something you can do that I like to do when I'm doing really long problems is when I do the 3y minus 2y, I go ahead and cross them out. That way I know I've done them. I don't, I'm one that, I know I'm talking about shopping and maybe I want to go shopping because I haven't been out of my house in a week. But when I go shopping and I'm like, okay, I need to buy bananas. And I go into the store and I end up buying like 10 things and I come out and I'm driving home and I didn't even buy bananas. Like I went in just to buy bananas. So I'm one that if I do a problem like this, I start guessing like, did I already subtract that or add that? So I get into the practice of when I do 3y minus 2y, I cancel them out and cross them out. That way I know I've already done them. Negative 7x plus 2x, I get negative 5x. I cross them out. I've already done them. And then the 7 minus 3 is 4. So I cross them out so that I have that. Okay? So that's what happens when numbers get involved in there as well. So make sure they have the same variable, they have the same exponent, and then you can combine them. Okay? Let me put some practice ones up there for you for your daily assignment. Once again, just like the ones with PEMDAS, you're going to combine and then take a photo. If it takes you more than one photo, that's fine, and you'll submit that. But let me put these on here. You can go back and re-watch. These will be close to what we did just now. 3x plus 2y minus 5x plus 7y. Okay. Number 2 is 16x squared plus 7x minus 2x cubed plus 4x squared minus 8x. Okay. Then I've got number 3 is 5xy. Let me point this out because we didn't quite do one like this. Plus 3x minus 2y plus 8x minus 7y. This one here is its own term. Because it has an x and y together, you cannot combine it with the x's or just the y's. Now if there was like a 2xy later that was together, like plus 2xy, then you could combine it with this. But you cannot just combine it with single x's and y's. So this term doesn't change. It stays 5xy. Wanted to point that out because we didn't quite do one like that. Number 4 is 5y squared plus 7x squared plus 4x squared plus 8x plus 2y squared minus 8 plus 4. So this goes on the end of it. My boards at school are much longer, so that's obviously a problem I'll have to address later. So basically look through those, do those, see what you can do, go back and watch and see what we did. We did one like this that was with the numbers at the end. Combine what you can. Remember, if you want, cross them out as you go along. And then if you have any questions, make sure you email me. And until the next day, thank you.